20th. We're going to have a great show for you guys. We're trying to recover from the Vermont Cannabis and Hemp Convention. We got a couple of great guests for you guys. Mike Salvaty is in from Good Stuff Grows. And then we also have the legendary, the one and only, the great-grandfather of hybrid cannabis in the studio. I kind of kidnapped him from Nican yesterday. Rick Naya, man. Welcome back, guys. Welcome. We also have on the phone with us, we do have our local weather with our weatherman, Bob. Bob, are you there?
I am. Good morning. I did not wash away in the storms last night.
It was a crazy night, man. I don't think I realized how hard it rained last night until I woke up this morning and saw like every river flooded, all these fields flooded, and it was just kind of an amazing experience. So tell us about our weather this week.
Yeah, well, we're going to have a pretty good week overall. Things are going to cool off significantly after the warmth today. And by warmth today, I mean we could see 80 degrees today for the first time this season if we get it, but certainly well up in the 70s. And pretty summer-like dew points. It's going to feel humid. Partially sunny skies for a few more hours, guys. And then the second round of showers moves in this, early to late afternoon. It's a fast-moving cold front. It's not going to be here long, but there could be some pretty impressive thunderstorms in there, maybe damaging thunderstorms. So if you have outdoor plans this afternoon, you want to be on the lookout for that. That activity dies down tonight. The temperatures will drop probably into the mid-40s. And tomorrow, here we go with another what a difference a day makes weather-wise. Tomorrow, lots of clouds, a little bit of sunshine, high temperatures in the mid-50s. So we're talking highs today around 80, tomorrow mid-50s. Do the math. It's a big difference.
A 30-degree difference. It's only New England, though, right? And then we'll have snow on Wednesday, right?
Well, we had snow last week, right? And I don't see any snow this week, but we do have that cold day tomorrow. After that, it begins to warm up. Wednesday, plenty of sunshine, high temperatures, mid-60s, which is seasonal or normal for late May. Thursday, sunny and dry, highs getting up around 70. Might be a couple showers on Thursday, but it shouldn't be a big deal. And then Friday, we should be back up again around 70 degrees with nice sunny, dry weather. So outside the storminess this afternoon and the cold tomorrow, this week is looking pretty good. And, boy, I'll tell you, that rain last night, nobody saw that coming. It's still an inexact science forecasting anything. But Hardwick got 1 3/4 inches, Danville 2.6 inches, Waterbury 2.8 inches, the airport picked up 1.6, et cetera, et cetera. 1.5 to 2.5 inches last night. We did not need it, as you mentioned earlier about the flooded farm fields.
Yes, yeah. It's wreaking havoc on a little bit of our crops out here, I believe, so hopefully.
Yeah, it is. It has been an issue up until last night, so we certainly didn't need last night. And we're going to get locally some more significant rain this afternoon. Not as much as last night, but if you do have outdoor plans, the thunderstorms are likely to be pretty fast moving, so hold my time to react, something to bear in mind, because, there could be some damaging winds in there. Treat them with respect.
So you're basically telling me it's going to be super hot, super wet, and so it means basically super humid today, right? It's going to be our first attack of the humidity?
Yeah, you're going to feel it. I mean, it's not going to be what it will be in July, but you're going to feel the humidity today.
All right, man. Well, hey, it is what it is. We are in New England. We'll take it as we get it. There's nothing we can do about it, and that's it, right?
Yeah, we can chill.
What do we have there? Oh, you guys still there?
I'm saying goodbye.
All right. All right, Bob, we'll talk to you next week. Thank you again.
Yep.
That was a weather alarm alert, huh?
Right. Well, that was our weather with Bob, guys. So obviously, it seems like every Monday, it seems like we come into like the worst weather. It's like either snow, rain. It's never sunny. It's never nice, and it's always fun to tease Bob about it because I think he just jinxes us in the long run,
Well, this morning I went outside and it was like I got slapped in the face with humidity, and I was like, oh my God, here we go.
Yeah, right. It's summertime. So, all right, guys, we have a great show coming for you. Don't go anywhere. We're going to go right to the Canna News, and we'll be right back with our special guests. And now for your local and national Canna News for May 20th, 2019. Texas Senate unanimously approves hemp legalization bill. According to the Texas Tribune, after a relatively short debate, the Texas Senate approved House Bill 1325 by State Rep. Tracy King. The bill would legalize hemp and hemp-derived extracts like CBD oil as long as they contain no more than 0.3% of tetrahydrocannabinol, the psychoactive element in marijuana known as THC. While hemp-based products that contain no THC, like clothing, twine, protein powder, moisturizers, and essential oils, are illegal in the state, the plant cannot be legally grown there, and Texas businesses often have to source it from other states. Lawmakers sought to clarify that the bill would not open the door to recreational marijuana use, and to ensure the bill had provisions in place to reprimand farmers found to be growing hemp that contained more than 0.3% THC, known as hot crop. Perry, the Senate sponsor of the bill, introduced a reworked version of the legislation that requires the state to adopt policies for the random testing of CBD sold in various retail stores and requires retail stores wanting to sell CBD oil or CBD products to get a permit. Under Perry's version of the bill, law enforcement who see people transporting hemp in the state are given broad power to seize anything they believe could be marijuana and or another controlled substance, regardless of whatever it is. Those officers could then impound the hemp along with a controlled or illegal substance. Those provisions were not in the lower chamber's version of the bill. House and Senate will likely have to negotiate their significant differences over the bill in a conference committee before it can be signed into law. More than 40 other states have legalized hemp production, but bills to do so in Texas have failed in the past legislative sessions. After Congress passed a farm bill last year legalizing hemp that contains no more than 0.3% THC at the federal level, states have been eyeing ways to create their own hemp programs so they won't be under federal guidelines. UW researchers to study cannabis during pregnancy. The University of Washington is undertaking a study to measure the effects cannabis has on an infant's brain development, cognitive and motor development, medical health, and social behavior after prenatal exposure. Unlike other studies that have not excluded alcohol, tobacco, and illicit drugs, these study participants will only consume cannabis during pregnancy. During the test, subjects are required to report their cannabis use weekly, use only cannabis from a licensed vendor, and send digital photos to record CBD and THC concentrations. Leading the research and Dr. Natalia Kleinhans and Stephen Dager, who say they will track the cannabis use through pregnancy and scan the infant brains at 6 months to identify any negative side effects. The researchers are recruiting 70 pregnant women less than 13 weeks pregnant, 35 for test and control groups. The control group will consume no cannabis, alcohol, tobacco, or illicit drugs. The test group will consume cannabis at least twice a week, primarily to control morning sickness. Participants will be drug tested during the study rather than mothers self-reporting their drug intake. At 6 months, both groups of infants will be evaluated for cognitive and social development, communication, motor skills, temperament, and other behaviors. Research will also use functional MRI technology to assess if cannabis exposure affected parts of the brain responsible for reward and addiction. The study comes at the same time the Washington State Liquor and Cannabis Board are requiring all cannabis shops to display mandatory signage warning against using cannabis when pregnant and or breastfeeding. Texas Senate Committee approves House-passed medical cannabis expansion bill. The Texas Tribune reported even as the Senate stonewalls a handful of bills aimed at lessening criminal penalties for possession of cannabis, an upper chamber committee on Friday advanced legislation that aims to vastly expand who has access to medical cannabis in the state. As filed, Representative Stephen Click's House Bill 3703 would add multiple sclerosis, epilepsy, and spasticity to the list of medical conditions that qualify for cannabis oil. The bill requires approval by the full Senate chamber before it can return to the Texas House, where lawmakers have already approved 2 bills drastically to expand the compassionate use program. Several who testified before the Senate committee pleaded with the panel to advance the bill, sharing personal stories of how using cannabis oil has helped them treat a bevy of medical ailments. Lawmakers from both parties were receptive to the emotional testimony and, after more than an hour of discussion, voted unanimously to send the legislation to the full Senate. Under Campbell's version of the bill, the Texas Department on Public Safety would still have the oversight of the compassionate use program. Her revised bill also keeps intact the 0.5% cap on the amount of psychoactive element in cannabis known as THC that medical cannabis products are legally allowed to contain. Still, there was a small window of opposition from a handful of parents and veterans who said they wished that the legislation was more broad and included conditions like post-traumatic stress disorder. The bill faces several more hurdles before it can be signed into law. Expanding the Compassionate Use Act has drawn the support of some politically powerful players since the last legislative season. Massachusetts cannabis regulators back social use program. The Boston Herald reports cannabis regulators in Massachusetts voted 3-2 on Thursday in favor of a social use pilot program that would allow cannabis consumption clubs to open in 12 cities throughout the state. The program would give social equity applicants the first crack at new licenses. The board still needs to craft regulations for the clubs, which would come as soon as the end of the month or as late as the fall, the report says. Vaping and edible consumption would be allowed indoors, while smoking would be limited to outdoors until the rules for ventilation could be crafted. Opponents of the proposal cited drug-driving concerns, including Chelsea Police Chief Brian Keyes, who said the law enforcement community is concerned with permitting social use because there is no mechanism in place to test for individuals driving under the influence of cannabis. Cannabis Commissioners Britt McBride and Jennifer Flanagan both voted against the plan, with McBride calling the sequence all wrong. Only Alaska allows social cannabis use statewide. Las Vegas and Denver, the largest cities in Nevada and Colorado, both also allow for social use within city limits, along with some California cities. Michigan licenses first cannabis delivery service. According to an MLive report, cannabis regulators in Michigan have licensed the state's first cannabis delivery service in Detroit and Portage. The 2 Detroit licenses were issued to Utopia Gardens and Botanique, while Lake Effect received the Portage license. However, the services can only bring products to patients in towns where cannabis sales are outlawed. The Marijuana Regulatory Agency delivery rules require dispensaries to hire their own drivers, document delivered inventory, and track delivery route with GPS. Delivery businesses can also offer 2.5 ounces, the maximum daily limit, during home deliveries. Weinberg said the company is taking security steps beyond what the agency requires, including equipping cameras on delivery vehicles and drivers. Utopia Gardens owner Stuart Carter said patients will be able to place orders online or by calling the shop, noting that their drivers will not accept cash but can accept debit cards. Carter said they're already doing 2 or 3 delivery runs per day. Since voters approved legalization in 2016, the state's industry has undergone many changes, including the closure of dozens of dispensaries over licensing issues and the elimination of the all-volunteer Marijuana Licensing Board. The approval for delivery services came last November as part of a larger overhaul of the medical cannabis rules and regulations. Idaho scientists developed first CBD-infused potato. Cannabidiol, the chemical most commonly extracted from hemp and cannabis, has now been produced inside of a potato. The potato, developed under a one-secret project called Chemically Balanced Dog, CBD, could face legal roadblocks. Simplot scientists have been commuting to an undisclosed location in Oregon to continue their research. Burbank has high hopes for the potato plant. Potato for pound for pound, potatoes may be able to outproduce cannabis as the largest source of both CBD and THC. If Idaho would legalize, then maybe we can bring our research back to the potato state. Simplot has not been shy about the product's potential applications. From CBD-infused French fries, mashed potatoes, and hash browns, the Mary Jane potato could be consumed with every meal. Although the Mary Jane potato originated in the potato state, Idaho may be one of the last places where it becomes legal. Idaho may be one of the last places where it comes to market. Governor Brad Little and the state legislature have repeatedly stated that marijuana and any THC products will remain illegal, even if for medicinal use. And that's it for your local and national Can News for May 20th, 2019. All right, that was a little tired news right there. Not gonna lie, guys, we had an awesome weekend. For everybody that didn't know, Vermont Cannabis and Hemp Conference was this past weekend. A big shout out again to Heady Vermont and the NECAN guys for bringing it to Vermont. It was an amazing event, something that Vermont definitely needed. So if you guys didn't make it, hopefully you'll make it again next year. If you did make it, thank you guys. I couldn't even see half of the event because everywhere we went, it was somebody everywhere. People we knew, people pulling us aside, right? So it was a great event. Mike was there, right?
Oh yeah, I was there. You know, it was. I went the first day, kind of walked through, and then yesterday I went down there with my wife and just kind of took a look at. I focused more on who was there and just kind of talked to a few people, and it was nice because I ran into a couple of Good Stuff Grow customers that were there, and was able to set them up with some of our new packaging, so our 4-pack boxes and things like that from some of our store owners that carry our product, like Southern Vermont Hydroponics. Casey, the owner there, was there, so I got him set up, and then the CBD Chill Corner down in Chester, they were there, so they got set up with the 4-packs. It was actually a really cool event, and I had a good time. My wife enjoyed it, so it was nice.
All right, man. Well, so, Mike, let's introduce you to everybody. Mike Salvaty, right? You're from Good Stuff Grows.
Yep.
And the Good Stuff, it's a corporation now, right, man? You guys got like 6 stores. You're pretty much everywhere right now.
Yeah, everybody in Vermont knows Good Stuff. They know that Jolly Roger pirate face that's out there. We have six smoke shops and adult stores located in Plattsburgh, New York, Burlington, Vermont, St. Albans, Vermont, Essex, Vermont, Derby, Vermont, and then down in Rutland, Vermont as well. So, you know, we're pretty scattered throughout the state. It's been an interesting road as far as the Good Stuff Grow product, which we started in mid-August. We finished up in March, and it's available in a lot of stores. You can get it in some Aubuchon hardware stores. We're in select Ace stores. We're all Guys Farm and Yard locations. We're in Montpelier Agway right down the road here. We're in Lindenville Agway, Essex Agway. You know, we're in quite a bit. Just check
right
out.
on. These guys are everywhere, man. You're talking about the mainstream stores now. We're not just talking.
We're not talking
stores.
small stores.
Right.
No, I'm in. My first sale was actually Aubuchon Hardware,
Which is amazing.
It's amazing.
Yeah, we were talking about this the other day about the Agway deals, right? So like Agway is really kind of opening up to being receptive to.
It's amazing because if anybody's ever checked out our actual packaging, if you go to goodstuffgrow.com or at goodstuff on Instagram and check out our actual packaging, we're pretty edgy. We didn't hide what it was for. You know, I mean, our Bud Breakfast graphic right now is a big bud sitting at a table eating a bowl of Cheerios. I mean, we didn't hide what it was for. And I was amazed at the reception that people were really open to it.
It's quite something, I say. I have to agree that, you know, it's common now to see that cannabis is being received. Medical broke that shield down.
Right.
And I think now that we're pushing back black market and industry is coming to the forefront, products like your own, Good Stuff Grow, it's getting out there. People are beginning to save it and receive it, like you said. Years ago, it used to be Fox Farm, and it had relegated labeling, and it was very limited to what it was for.
Right.
Fertilizing for what? It was only real growers that knew. And West Coasters that brought that info to us.
And that was just a case of overabundance, fertilization, just.
And here's the other amazing thing. We hooked up with a distributor out of Albany, HB Davis Seeds, which services most of the Agways in New England and New York, and they picked up half a pallet of our product too. And it just amazes me how some people are really open to it, and then there's some people, because I went into stores where they're like, oh no, we don't want it.
Yeah, it's funny that you and I, we were talking a little earlier, and I think a lot of people, when they think about the cannabis industry, they think about just growing cannabis, but you know, you talked about the picks and the shovel. You know, you can mine gold, but you had to have the pan, and you had to have the shovel and the hammer to do it. So without that actually starting up and getting going, like with Good Stuff Grow, and spreading this kind of information out is critical.
Right.
But as cannabis is expanding nationally and hemp is expanding nationally, and we have 30 states that are now medically legal, 11 that are going legal, there's a lot happening that products are going to be the true mainstream of this industry. It's not just a seed, it's what allows you to grow high grade, high quality cannabis that's healthy for you.
And it's funny because people ask me, "Oh, did you come up with this formula?" I said, "Oh, no, I'm not that smart. I'm a retired car salesman, not that smart." So we linked up with Paul Sachs and Slava down at North Country Organics here in Bradford, Vermont. So our product is really a local, really bred local Vermont. And, you know, Vermont is known for cannabis. Mm-hmm. I mean, people don't realize that. Like, when I was out west, for people who are like, oh, Vermont, I'm like, yeah, man, Vermont is really known for cannabis out on the East Coast.
Strawberry fields came from Vermont. That's where strawberry cough and all the strawberry lanes came from Vermont cannabis. And I think back in the early days, because I'm the original hybrid designer.
Hybrider?
Yeah, I'm the hybrider. I'm the legend or the myth.
You're the original plant toucher, right?
Well, I just found out, this happened, 40 plus years ago, and I was a young guy, I was a young kid, honestly, and throughout the years, I've been that surfer cool guy, whatever, out there just championing cannabis. Hey, it's good, okay, it doesn't, fry your brain like an egg, in a frying pan, it doesn't do that, and education, study, learn. I educated myself in cannabis, and I began to learn that what they were doing was just indoctrinating us and lying to us. And it takes people.
I mean, a lot of this propaganda is complete. And now we're finding tests like, so you smoke weed, your lungs are better, right? It's healthier for athletes and stuff like that.
Exactly.
They're finding out now that I mean, people that are smoking cannabis are healthier, so they're less overweight people smoking cannabis. It's a healthier thing for you.
Saying
your
I
bodies
need to
are getting
smoke
tuned
more
in
because I'm kind of a fat little Italian guy.
I don't want to say that. I think that'd probably be the Italian thing for you. But but I mean, their studies are coming out that are showing these things, and they're showing these results. So like all these things that we thought about when we were younger, like the eggs in the frying pan. You know what I mean?
That was
I
terrible.
always remember that commercial, the Nancy Reagan era, the Ronald Reagan era propaganda.
Madness,
they used to come into my elementary school in New York. I remember all that.
Dare to do
Dare
drugs.
cops.
Well, you know what? You had the table full of all the pipes and bongs and all these things, and at the end there was a bag of what we thought was weed was oregano, and and I told them that's not cannabis, and they asked, "How do you know?" Because I've smoked it before.
Yeah, right. I've smoked it.
I was that kid.
But I mean, so the stigma is healthy and alive, right? Which is really cool by having you on, because now you're dealing with national change, right? I mean, even in this own show, In the Weeds, we are getting the stigma now. We're getting forced to move out of this block because of our content not being appropriate for the listeners. So like our educational content is not proper for this time slot, so they're pushing us away. Right. So we're going to go to a later night time slot where there's no kids listening. But now, this is where the stigma goes. Like, you're in Agway, you're in Aubuchon's, right? And you're talking and selling cannabis, but now us on air trying to educate people, you know what I mean? It's just this weird cycle, right?
Well, with the national chains, and what I realized is that when I talk to these people is they don't know where to go either. No. They want to get into the market, but they don't know how to get into the market. Mm-hmm. So when I walk into these stores, and when I talk to a store owner or a guy who owns, like Bibbins Ace Hardware, for instance, they carry our product from Brattleboro all the way up into Burlington.
Wow.
And, when I sat down with Rick Bibbins, the owner, and it was a 5-minute conversation, and he saw it. He understood what we were trying to do, and he says, "Yeah, I'll carry it in all 7 stores." So we're in all of his stores, and I'm in Green's Ace Hardware in Enosburg. I'm in St. Albans Ace Hardware, and it's selling there. That's the amazing thing.
So that was my next question: is what's been the response in either sales or the response? I guess the response to me is acceptance. Like when you go in the stores, are these guys being like, "No, get your weed and get out of here. Get your products out of there. No, teach me something. Educate me really quick."
So I spoke with, like I said, I spoke with Rick Bibbins, who owns all Bibbins Ace Hardwares. He said your packaging is very to the point. It's very edgy. I'll take the chance on it. And that's his son Greg Bibbins was actually shocked that his father's carrying it in the stores because he said, I was told he's more on the conservative side. What I'm finding out is that a lot of people that are on the conservative side are still open to it. Like, look at Aubuchon Hardware. I went directly to their main buyer. I didn't go to a local store. I called their corporate office in Massachusetts, in Westminster, Mass, and I said, "Who buys for all your stores?" That's who I want to talk to. Because one thing I realized, and I've been in sales, and I've been in some sort of sales for over 20 years. So for me, I know how long it takes for me to talk to somebody on a sale. And if I were to take my time and try to talk to every store owner or every manager, I'd be working 24/7, 365
Non-stop.
days a year. So my motto was, let me find people that own multiple stores. That way I can talk about my product one time, and it can get down there into...
It proliferates.
Right, and it gets down there into the people that are looking to use it. And what I noticed about the Ace Hardwares, the Aubuchons, the Agways, and the stores like that is a lot of beginners that are going to these stores that don't know. So my marketing strategy was simple. When we were doing our labels, I said, if I want to grow roses, I buy the bag with roses on it.
Right.
That's pretty much that. That was pretty much my simple.
I said,
hey, if I want to grow cannabis, I'm going to buy the thing that's got cannabis on it. Let's take the stigma out of it, and let's not hide what we're doing like one of the other larger companies are doing. They're hiding what it's for. Let's not hide it anymore. Let's just say this is what it is.
I think you got a good point to that degree, that we can't hide it and keep it stigmatized. And then again, we have to keep a message that with children. So a lot of the labeling and packaging that we see. Much of the earlier packaging was really geared with kids and was really quite something. And I think we're all coming to an agreement. You know what? We did it with cigs. We do it with alcohol. We do it with...
We do a lot with everything.
With everything. We regulate those things to keep away from children. And I heard something very recently with Bill Diamond from Diamond Productions, the Muppet creator of the Monsters, Inc. guy. He said to me, he goes, Rick, it's really kind of funny how children see things because, they understand the psychological things that children deal with because of their shows. But their shows weren't geared for kids. It was an adult show that kids could understand.
Right.
And these puppets and Muppets they made weren't really originally to think that they were for children. Right. It's the message that the children were receiving from the show. Even Sesame Street was adults in the show, and they were doing adult things, and they talked about drugs and marijuana on Sesame Street.
A lot, actually.
A lot. And it was sending a message not only to the children, but the adults could understand, too, so they could relate.
Right.
Now, a child can understand an adult movie, can understand adult jokes, can understand adult topics, but what adults don't like doing is reverting our thoughts to what we think a child is really interpreting. So educating children and keeping them on that edge, letting them know that, hey, this is a medicine, this is how it works, this is like alcohol and tobacco, it's about health and wellness. You brought that up a minute ago and touched on that topic. What we've come to find after 50 years of indoctrinated disbeliefs and misinformation is that people like myself and the researchers and the scientists bring counter information. It's become counter information because what we only had was bias to the negative. And everything you ever spoke about, negative, pretty much, don't talk about it. You can't remove that information. You can't talk about the administration, the Nixon administration removed it from libraries, universities. It was a bad thing for humanity. Not just for a nation, for my personal health and well-being. And then I wanted to touch on the endocannabinoid system in a way. And children don't understand that. They don't have a need to. But what we all have to understand is the largest amount of CBD or a level thereof that a child will ever receive is through its mother's milk. So I think a lot of people are beginning to understand now, how could it be that a mother's producing CBDs at that kind of a level and giving it to her child? Because it is the kickstart of the endocannabinoid system, and it helps ward off and protect the child and give them a beginning to orchestrating their health and wellness. So it's really something that, how cannabis touches bases from childhood and the designs of the packaging. And they talk about, that leads children to use. Remember Joe Camel on the cigarette had to stop all of that. Had this. And, I don't know how far they're going to be able to take that with cannabis, because you go around and you see events and you go to places and you see the kids who are doing the sessions and trying to get their market brands and move, and you see how they're labeled. And then you go to your companies and other companies who are labeling with cannabis and others, like even Garden Prodigy. They have a lovely logo. It's not overstated. You can tell it's for seeds and growing, and it's indicative of our industry. And I think that's really pretty cool. And even like the Toking Dead, they have a label with a cannabis leaf, your pirate with your cannabis leaf. It shows, but it's not too excessive. It's not going overboard. And I think that's a message we should try to, relegate. We're bringing our industry to a level of respect. We're bringing it it to the next level now. And I think it's important to educate the people that don't know. The other 98%, like you're saying, they go into Aubuchon, they go to Walmart, they go to the shopping centers, they go to stores and doctors and lawyers. They're just like all of us, and now they're interested in these products. What better way to catch your attention to know with a label that says, hey, this is good stuff to grow with.
Yeah, exactly.
You see? I think it's a good thing. We need to educate people more. Joe does a great job of it here in Vermont.
Well, education, I think, is everything, and the kids are the biggest thing. So, I mean, I think it's more education than packaging to me. So it's like if you want to put some bright yellow packaging on your cannabis product, you should be allowed to, right? They got bright yellow packages on dip. They got bright yellow packages. Dude, Tide Pods, for Christ's sakes. You know what I mean? Like, look at the Tide Pod issue. Like, these kids are eating Tide Pod because they're...
The groovy orange Tide.
Right? Now, that to me is not a packaging issue. That to me is an educational issue, right?
It is.
So whether it's candy or whatever you're feeding your kids or treating your kids, it's educational. But anyways, guys, it's 9:30. We're having a great show here. I can't thank Mike and Rick enough for the show. We're going to have to take a quick break. We'll be right back. We're going to do the strain of the week with Brendan Barberio. Don't go away, guys. We're actually going to have a giveaway, too. Let's talk about that real quick before we take our break.
Yeah, so we have, I have 2 bottles of Garden Prodigy's BioFizz that we're going to give away. I'm also going to give away 4 1-pound packages of our base nutrient, which is our Bud Breakfast, that I'm also going to give away as well.
Awesome, guys. So stay tuned for that. We'll announce when that's going to happen. We're going to do it right before the top of the hour. That way we can answer the phones and get everything set. But here we go, guys. This is the strain of the week with Brandon Barberio.
I'm Brandon Barberio, your cannabis expert from the Weeds Prohibition Talk Radio on WGDR. This week's strain of the week is the Oregon Silver Haze. The Oregon Silver Haze is a heavy sativin dominant strain. It's special to the Oregon area, and it's cut from the infamous Silver Haze, the Northern Lights, and the Skunk No. 1. It's extremely hard to come across in dispensaries in Oregon because it's so sought after. But the Silver Haze is one potent bud that you'll need in your arsenal if you're a sativa lover. It has a classic haze flavor. The high starts with an energetic boost and leaves you feeling euphoric. It's strictly uplifting and a sense of ease. As the state builds, a laser-sharp feeling focuses its wash over you and leaves you at home with anything to do. You don't have to feel anxious, and you can complete anything you want. Unless you take too little of a toke at times, because this bud is actually coming in at around 26% average THC. The Oregon Silver Haze is said to be perfect for treating a variety of conditions such as chronic pain, insomnia, chronic stress, irritability, and depression. This bud has a piercing long green mint nugs with orange hairs and a frosty covering of crystals. The Oregon Silver Haze has a classic flavor with a kush-type exhale on the haze. The aroma is sweet and the herbs are citrus with a cozy kush overtone that is floral. Once again, I'm Brandon Barberio, your cannabis expert for In the Weeds Prohibition Talk Radio on WGDR.
Hi, my name is Ricky Williams.
My name is Evan Britton.
My name is Mark Costelli.
My name is Boo Williams.
My name is Jim McMahon.
My name is Chris Cluey. My name is Kyle Turley. I played in one of the major North American football leagues.
I have 2 championship rings from that big game we play at the end of the season.
In college, the men who play American football are subject to a life of injury,
pain,
and disease,
both during and long after their careers are over.
And that's why I smoke pot.
That's why I smoke cannabis.
That's why I smoke weed. That's why I smoked weed when I played.
It has, without a doubt, reduced the amount of pain I live with.
It's my body. I know.
But for some reason, the major North American non-Canadian football league refuses to allow players to use cannabis.
Instead of allowing for safe, natural healing,
The sport pushes players towards addictive narcotic painkillers with serious side effects.
So let's get real, Roger.
Football players should be allowed to use medicinal marijuana
without the stigma of it being a banned substance.
Cannabis isn't a drug.
It is a medicine.
All right, guys, and we are back live. If you guys are tuning in on our Facebook feeds and all of our video feeds, we got like 4 or 5 videos going. Ours just kind of overheated, so everyone's freaking out. We're back on live, so if you guys want to go back over to our Facebook page, you can find us. Again, Mike Salvaty and Rick Naya. We got the Good Stuff Grows and the Good Stuff.
Yeah, the Good Stuff stores.
The stores, man, right?
Yeah. You can catch me out in Essex, I'm typically there Monday through Friday.
I imagine the product's in the store, too, right?
Yeah, of course.
You tell everybody else where to buy it, but your own store,
Yeah, I look at it this way. It's a Good Stuff product, so people, I think, I would like to think they would already assume that it's there. So I try to promote our other retailers because they're the ones that have taken the chance and spent their hard-earned money with us. So I want them to kind of get the sales and reap the benefits of it, and the customers. I try to make it easier for them too, because it's different customers too that are coming into our store that are going into their stores. I mean, some people might not feel comfortable coming into our store because of the adult aspect of it, right? So there's some people that I don't want to go in there, but they'll go into a Aubuchon's, an Ace, or a Johnson Farm and Garden. You know what I mean? They'll go into those types of stores, but they won't come into ours.
Right.
So that's really why I try to push. I push what we have going on too. You know what I mean? We try to make it easy at our store, especially for beginners. I know Rick and I were talking a little bit about growing equipment a little bit, and one of the things that we offer at the Good Stuff stores is we offer a beginner's growers package.
Growers package. Get out and get their growers package. If you're an early beginner and you really want to get started and give it a good try, their package for $599, it can't be beat.
No, it literally comes with everything you need. It comes with a 4x4
It doesn't come with a seed or a clone, but everything else. Right? And you need water.
Yeah, you need water. Yeah. So, I mean, it's a nice package. It comes with a 300-watt LED light, a 4x4 tent, an intake fan, an exhaust fan, 2 clip fans for inside the tent to move the air around. It comes with the 2 5-gallon fabric bags.
Nutrients.
Comes with our 4-part nutrient system. It comes with 3 bags of Green Mountain compost soil.
Humidity thermostat and everything.
Yeah, comes with everything. I put the package together.
Hey, listen, you can't beat the package, folks. If you want to get an entry level and you really want to do it well, Good Stuff is a place to go to, and you're going to give you great equipment. It's going to last, and you're going to get great results. So give it a go.
If you're in Vermont, guess what? It's free setup and delivery. I'll come right to your house and I'll actually set it up for you.
Nobody does that, folks. So and I bet you're going to get great advice as well. And I'm sure you're going to really.
I'll explain how to use our system because it is a little different from what's out there on the market, which I like. Our growing system is set up off of plant height, not time, which is actually the way a plant grows versus not. You don't put it on a time schedule, right? You actually, it's an annual plant. So it's technically it should be growing for a full year, right? That's what the plant was designed originally to grow like. And some people like to cut it down to 2-3 months. But, so we set it up of plant height before you prune versus the actual time. And our application chart is a little different than what's out there, which also sets us apart a little bit.
That's pretty groovy, folks. Check this out. Right.
Yeah, so the developer, Paul Sachs, he studied over 200 different strains of cannabis. He studied the leaf tissues, the plant matter at every stage of growth. And what he found out is that the plant actually needs the same nutrients. It needs different levels at different stages of growth, which is how we set up the application chart. So when your plant's 3 to 11 inches tall, you're giving it 1 teaspoon 2 times a week of our bud breakfast. When it gets past that 11-inch mark, you're giving it 2 teaspoons 2 times a week. When you get past that, you're giving it a tablespoon 2 times a week. And then it's 3 times a week. And then when you get into your transition stretch, into your flowering, because it doesn't need as much nitrogen, you start to decline it again. You don't stop it, you decline it because it still needs nitrogen. It just needs a little bit of it. Doesn't need a lot. So when you get in your transition stretch, when you start to see the white pistils on the plant, you start to decrease it again. Then you go back down to 1 tablespoon or 2 teaspoons 3 times a week. Then it's 2 teaspoons 2 times a week. Then it's a teaspoon once a week towards the end. And then you finish it off and you flush it a week before harvest. You don't have to flush it throughout because it is an organic fertilizer. So it's not going to It's not going to do a lot of
It's gonna
damage.
leach
to you.
and burn. Yeah.
Right. It's not going to leach and burn. So.
And now that's one thing I don't think we touched on. Clean Green certified product, right?
It is. You can check us out on their website or our website. We are Clean Green certified.
That's
awesome.
Amazing. I mean, it's the certifications in this world, this industry, are definitely needed. There's a lot of non-regulation, so there's really no standard set. So these guys help set a standard. So when you're Clean Green certified, I mean, and Clean Green's not an easy certification to get. They're one of the harder ones.
They are hard.
In fact, they are. They have some of the highest scruples in the industry.
Yeah, I mean,
and so should it be. We were consuming products, and it should be.
Well, I mean, it's coming from a food background. You know what I mean? Like, being a farm-to-table chef, being someone that's concerned about the food that people intake and what's in it. I have a big argument with organic certification, right? There's 38 different ways you can identify something as organic. So, like, it doesn't necessarily have to mean that it's organic. It could have something that was organically used in the process. Or, I mean, there's a lot of wording issues around organic. So when I hear the word organic, I kind of laugh sometimes because it hits, because I know the way the food was done, like the FDA. Like, that's why I'm kind of a little concerned about the FDA holding cannabis, you know what I mean? Because, I mean, we can't
shut the FDA down. I don't agree with them.
Dude, we can't get nothing passed, right? What are they enforcing? Like,
you can pass more things through the federal government than the FDA allows because it's controlled through the pharmaceutical industries.
But we can have toothpaste with fluorides and all these other chemicals that we can't have, and they pass all day long.
It's insidious. Look all over the world how many products in our country are served to us, and processed foods and products that we consume in beauty and
there are known carcinogenics. They're known
and
carcinogenics.
all over Europe and South America and Asia, they don't permit them, but yet
we do. Right, Monsanto's not allowed in half of the globe because
two-thirds of the globe.
They've kicked them out. They've banned them. They're trying to burn down wheat fields that don't catch on fire because of their products that they're spraying on these fields. You know what I mean?
Think about that.
It's scary. And now
they want us to consume this and put it in our bodies.
Right. So now this is the funniest thing I see, because now that it feels like our government actually is going after Monsanto, right? Like we see in the news that people are going after them now, right? They're getting lawsuits. Things are happening, right? So when does the FDA wake up and take their products out of this food that they're using and wake up and see where these products are coming? Because, I mean, how many different things does Monsanto own or have their fingers in right now, right? Mm-hmm. So you pick up any box of this processed food, and my soda as well probably has some in it right now, that has something from a Monsanto-owned product, right? Whether it's a field, a product, an ingredient, you know what I mean? When do we start that? When does the FDA step up to that? But we can't get cannabis regulated, right?
What we have to do is make sure that the people that are in the FDA weren't ex-employees of these big corporations or haven't been corrupted by them, because that's what happens. It's like in our state, we have an RSA 15A, which requires any elected official, anybody in a commission, anybody that works for the state, sign over their financials. They're supposed to prove that they're not corrupt, and they're supposed to prove where their funds come from and so forth. Well, last year we brought that up to the attention of the Attorney General, and they shunned us, and they got really quiet, and we gave it to the newspaper, and it went ballistic. This year, when people were elected, I think 90% of them were filing their 15As. And what was funny is they have to file with their financial records, not just sign and tell them where they're employed. Our governor signed where he was employed was just the state of New Hampshire. Well, the funny thing is he's also a board director of an owner of the ski resort and other businesses. So what they're doing is they're not proving where their funds and real money or kickbacks are coming from. So the corruption in our state is behind closed doors. You don't want anybody to know. And if you talk about it, even the judges and everybody, they kibosh you and don't allow you to speak up. Right. It's quite something what's happened in our country, and it's really quite sad. But nowadays, when we hold our elected officials accountable and we speak loudly and clearly about cannabis and bring policy and science forward, we do move forward. And I think it's nice to see, like yourself, your company. It hasn't been that long, you guys. He hasn't been in this, but to go from a dream to make a plan of action, and to take that plan of action and make it a mission statement, and then make a business plan out of it, make a model out of it, and move forward with it in the time frame that they have is quite impressive. And to do it at the level that they have with the industry people that had nothing to do with cannabis at all. I mean, there they are at Albuchon's, at the local businesses, and they're receiving their product knowing that this product is to grow cannabis, not roses and not these other things. So you very possibly could. I'm very sure you probably can, and I'm sure you can. But to know that it's geared for the cannabis industry is quite reflective of where our nation is coming, and Vermont specifically. And it's a great thing to know. My sister state, New Hampshire, my state, I only wish that we would have a more open view.
I'm trying to get there.
We should have an open view of it.
I spoke to a store owner. He's waiting to see what happens with the law, but he owns 6 stores over there.
The problem is in New Hampshire, they're all misinformed. They're all antiquated. They don't know the law. I'm the guy that brings federal data, and just a few other people bring federal information that is really accurate and current. The rest of it is indoctrinated belief systems that have destroyed our opportunities. Over 68% of the state of New Hampshire citizens want cannabis legal. That study was done 3 or 4 years ago.
3 or 4 years ago.
Now, there's got to be well over 74 to 75% of our state citizens want it legal, yet they continue this antiquated, just reefer madness
It's money.
beliefs.
It's money.
I don't even know if it's just about the money with them in our state.
How can it not be? You're looking at patients, you're looking at care, you're looking at all these things. How can they?
In my state, they have an infiltration of a place called New Futures, who comes in with children and has children speak on behalf, and then they use antiquated data and science in a way that they believe them. And the point isn't about what New Futures has to say about what they think about cannabis. It's what the people in the embodiment of the state of New Hampshire citizens have already said time and time again for over 25 or 30 years. They want cannabis legal, yet they send us under. And it shouldn't be that way. 68% now, 74.5% of our citizens want it legal. The governor should know immediately, I'm on a veto, and if you get it there, that shouldn't be the way a governor runs. He was elected and swore about that. And, they say a lot of things that the sky's going to fall. Every state that's legalized always goes through something. They said that child abuse was going to increase. It declines. It declines.
Right.
Because now the mystique of, I want to sneak around the corner. My dad's been doing that for years.
Well, you have that.
My kids are that way. You know, my kids are like, Dad, whatever. And they get on their games and they talk to their buddies and they go do their thing.
Well, you all right. So we're talking about the decline in abuse or these issues, right? Domestic abuse, we'll say, right? So, great article I'm reading on decline in domestic abuse, right? So, what is a lot of people changing, trading their
alcohol for cannabis?
Alcohol, their prescription
Police will
drugs,
tell you.
but it's mainly alcohol right now. A lot of people are stopping drinking because when you smoke weed, you don't feel that need to have alcohol. So now you're not abusive. You're not at home arguing with your wife. Your kids aren't driving you nuts. You're a little bit more prone to be like, come give me a hug, buddy. You know what I mean? Honey, why we like this? Come smoke with me. You know what I mean? It's just it creates a different attitude in your household, I think. And how many people do we know grew up in a drunk household? In a broken family, right? Where their parents were abused, their mothers were abused, and this is stuff that we live with. Like as a kid, we don't always necessarily, as an adult, we don't see the influence we have on our kid. You know what I mean? All it does is, it's not something that has to be repetitive either. That one time, right? That one time your dad smacks your mom in front of you. You know what I mean? Like that changes your life as a kid, right?
I got to say, I never got exposed to any of that kind. I got to be very, very, very fortunate in my background. But what did change me is to be exposed to the friends in those environments and gotten to see that. And it kind of shocked me as a child growing up. And I think it's kind of what made me a little more compassionate to my friends and others, because I saw the misfortune that
other people
had to experience, and it made me humble. It was like, wow, man, let's just make it better. We'll make a party out of it, you know. And I was always trying to be like that. Let's don't think about those problems. Let it be like a duck. Water off a duck's back. Let it go. Just keep moving forward. You know, grab your own drum, trombone, your trumpet, and your banner, and make your own parade. Just like we try to get our space in life, but you can't give up. You just have to keep going. And if you believe in yourself and you believe in something, it's just like everything. Someone believed that they could draw a picture of the moon and a rocket going there. We went there. If you can believe, we can do it. And this is a fact. There's nothing around how our consciousness works with our soul and others and how we affect life. Cannabis is an enhancer. It's an optogen. It optimizes our body. It optimizes our endocannabinoid system. It allows it to orchestrate in a well-being in a balanced way. It scourges disease. It wards off cancers. It rewires our neuropathy. For many people that don't understand, because of our indoctrination, please spend time with your family and ask them to read the patents on the U.S. government that they hold. And if you're smart enough to know and realize what they're saying within that over 45, 50 years ago, they knew that they had a cure for many diseases, and they rescinded it and hid it. And they allowed petrograde chemicals. Now, when people don't understand what petrograde chemicals means, it means it comes from crude oil, and it's the byproducts from oil. Now, I won't sit down and drink a glass of gasoline, but they sure as heck will make chemicals and compounds from those poisons, make pills out of them, and say, hey, this will cure you. But it doesn't cure anything. When you look at the medicines that we take, there'll be a statement at the top. This may alleviate this, and then 6 pages of the death that it causes to your body's organs, minds, neurotransponders, and our cells. Please, people, understand
and that's only for one of them. And usually when you go to the doctor, they give you that one, and then they give you another one for the side effect, another one for the other side effect, and next thing you know, you're on 5 drugs.
12
for one issue.
Some of these people that have these things with 12 things a day, that your body can't process that.
So years ago, I had a severe puncture wound in the top of my head. That's another, it's not a bad story. It's a funny story, but I had a severe puncture wound in my head, right? I went to the doctor. They gave me 1 medicine for my head. I had 7 medicines for the side effects of all the side effects of all the medicines that they were giving me for the side effects. I couldn't stand up for a month. This was about 20 years ago, and the best thing that happened to me is I went to see a doctor, and the doctor looked at me and says, do you smoke weed? I said, well, I used to every day until now I'm on these medications. I can't stand up. I'm on 8 of them. I'm a mess. Like, I get it. I feel what the people feel that are on these narcotics, because I was there. I was there for a month. I literally, my stomach ever since then has been a mess. So, like, for me, like, cannabis has an opposite effect for me. Like, people get this munchies and they get hungry. They go eat a whole store. I'm like, no, dude. I get hungry. My stomach hurts. I smoke. I feel wonderful again.
Me too.
It kind of calms down my gut. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Not for everybody.
It's a holistic. It's a holistic. And holistics is what we've been consuming since mankind has been known. I mean, we start with long grass, you think? No. Think about that, right? So, think about what we've been doing, our whole lives. And I look at it like this: whomever or whatever and however it evolved is almost an impossibility to think that it wasn't designed for our bodies, just due to the fact that it orchestrates our endocannabinoid system. It's the only true known plant to fully orchestrate it, unlike broccoli and greeneries and different forms of vegetables that we can consume that affect our cannabinoid system, because endogenously within our body we produce CBDs and we enhance it. Some people have a deficiency in their wiring because of the stripping of it 80 years ago, hemp products from our diets. So what we saw in the last 75, 80 years are more neurological issues and afflictions with children, early developmental disorders. And we think about why when a woman has a child and they're trying to feed them colostogen, which is extremely high in CBDs, and to protect the child with these antigens, it's scary to think that they've stripped them from our bodies. The only thing that's left is our organs trying to produce and keep up with it. Your body can't. That's why we have these other products and hemps and oils and CBDs and proteins to eat that are higher in CBD and these enzymes to allow a woman's body to orchestrate enough CBD to protect that child. So for many years, children have been being birthed and born without these higher levels, shocking more and more and more their systems. So I think what's happening now is the new generation is evolving. The educated propensity of adults are between 40 and 65. Those are the people who make decisions in our nation and the control, and that's the fact. But those are the ones that are consuming the cannabis at the greatest rates, not the teens. It is actually the adults who are educated, learning the sciences and learning the outcome of the holistic remedies, not petrograde poisoning.
No. And now there's a big change in what you see, especially in these events. Like, we were just at NECAN yesterday, right, or this weekend. The difference between last year and this year was immense, right? Obviously, the legality issues are a little different. The stigmas are obviously a little bit different. I think the state's trying, but like Rick nailed it on the head. Like, half the people that are in charge are these people that really live that stigma. They are the older people, and sadly, I think some of them are interested. They're looking at it, but they don't know what to do. It's like we were talking about it before. Like, what do we do? Like, whose market do we follow? Do we make a new market? Do we follow what Mass does? Do we do what Colorado does? When I was at the State House, they were looking at what Alaska was doing, and we're all going, Alaska? Like, what? They're getting numbers, and they're getting all their stuff from Alaska. So
Pearson Crosby is real big activist out in Alaska. I want to give him a big hit, Pearson. I love you, Pearson Crosby.
So now let's talk a little politics. We have about 7 minutes before the top of the hour. Let's talk a little politics, right? Mike, you like politics, right? A little bit.
I try to stay away from it. I own a business, so
smart man.
Right? Well, I mean, as a
my
business
father
owner,
owned this business, and we try to stay
neutral.
Well, typically
I want
we
everybody's
stay
money.
neutral,
Yeah.
right? But you're a business owner, right? So you're a business owner. You have things going, and like you're in a couple different markets legitimately, right? Because you're not in a real cannabis market. Most of the guys that we talk to are legitimately staying within the industry because that's the only people that are allowing us to work with them, right? So it's a corporate industry, right? So we talked about how you were perceived and welcomed by these industries, right?
Right.
So as far as politics go, right? We're in Vermont, right? We just had our bills squashed. New Hampshire is struggling getting their bills passed. I think they just got squashed too. Like we're seeing a lot of bills get squashed all over the country right now, right? So it's all this. So for me, it's like, was this just a smoke and mirrors for elections? Because everyone's saying 2020, 2020, 2020 now, right? Everything's 2020. Mike, you're a store owner in Vermont. My question to you is, what do you think Vermont needs to do right now? What about the dispensaries? What about the stores? I mean, you're a store owner, so I don't want you to put a bias into it, but like
with the Good Stuff stores, I don't really have a lot to do with them. I don't own any of that in any means, but my father-in-law does, and we talk about this quite a bit. When you look at recreation adult use in the state of Vermont, and you look at all the stores that are out there, he has written letters to all the representatives, and he says, "Why don't you guys come talk to us? We've been doing this for 20 years in Vermont."
They don't talk to any of the professionals.
We've been in the cannabis industry at a smoke shop since 1998. Why don't you reach out and talk to us? My father-in-law tells me the story about Operation Headhunter. I don't know if you remember that, Rick. Back when the DEA went through all the smoke shops and pretty much seized everything.
Yeah, took all their stuff, all the roller
and said it's all paraphernalia. You can't sell this, right? He survived that. Right. You know what I mean? So he went through all that, which is why when we look at all, he gets so frustrated because he says none of these people want to talk to me, and I have great ideas. He's been in retail. He understands retail, right? He understands. The tobacco license. He had a liquor license. He owned a bar. He understands the need to keep it away from children.
Right.
He understands that it's adult use, and that's exactly what it is.
Right on.
So when he talks to me about it, and we kind of go back and forth with it, and I can only take what he's been through, and then what I see, because he's 60-something years old, so he's seen a lot, and I'm in my 30s. I don't know, so I listen to what he says to me, and it's mind-boggling that none of these people reach out to him, because he's been a staple for the state of Vermont for a smoke shop.
Very interesting you should say it that way, because
Vermont, he's 100% right, man.
Yeah.
Like, we have advocates that have been doing it for 30. The thing that kills me about, and it's not just Vermont, it seems like everywhere, right?
Yeah.
Half the people that, and Rick, in New Hampshire, Mass, a lot of our friends, we have overqualified people not being able to get a job, and you know what the number one reason why is? Because they have a felony. So that's my other big issue. Like, you got to be the best grower, but you got a felony because 6 years ago you got busted growing a pound of weed, and then you had a car and you got a felony rap for it, and now the state can't talk to you or the guys who've been growing for years or the guys who've been operating a business like your stepfather, right? Like, these are the guys that work that side. Why would they not bring these guys in?
And that's what I don't understand. I think it comes down to money. Actually, at that point, I will say I think
it's money, right?
It comes to money.
Well, my favorite thing in this whole thing, I don't want to
look at their licensing that they were talking about. $75,000. Come on.
Well, for the dispensaries, right? So if you're if you're a dispensary, do you want to spend $75,000 for the 2-year head start? I mean, that's a lot of money.
Yep, I do.
That's a lot of money.
Nope,
I sure do.
I want to pay it immediately.
Of course you do, because you want to get that jump start.
$200,000.
Right.
Exactly. I'd pay $500,000 for 2 years head start, because I know what the reality is.
Right. In the long run, the returns and the revenue is just beyond what most people comprehend. Now, I think what we need to realize in politics, because that's the arena that I kind of encompass, what happens is in the cannabis arena, in legislatives, is that you have the indoctrinated believers, the madness, reefer madness people are there.
Right.
You have to go to the hearings on a regular basis to hold them accountable accountable to what they say. Then you start accumulating what they say is not reasonable, it's not common sense, and then it's not scientific. Then you have to decipher what they thought was scientific and remove that from the equation. Then you go right to cannabis and start proving it with the science and the data and the research. Right. That's the only way to do it. And you can't do it while you're running your business. Right. You have to have a person like me or someone that's being paid a lobbyist. But when you pay a lobbyist, they're getting paid by the actual medical dispensary. Right. And the dispensaries and other people like that. It isn't just, oh, Americans are paying money for us to write policy. And that is a big misconception that I believe Vermont experienced.
Oh, yeah. Did we spend
certainly
$18,000 on lobbyists for dispensaries?
Let me just say, when policy gets written by, or suggested to be written by a lobbying company that's affiliating themselves with the actual dispensary people, and they conjure their laws together, and it's called jargoning. They start jargoning together to figure out how the model that they're going to develop is going to benefit them. In Vermont, as they tried to in New Hampshire, the medical dispensaries got into the business under the guise of, oh, we are going to be a non-for-profit, and we are a 501c3, and we go by the moral clauses and the ethical clauses, and we have no interest in the retail market. And they all said this. Yeah.
Then the law changed.
Said this.
Then they changed it.
Then it was, no, we got into this to get into the retail. And immediately they should have had their licenses removed from them because, ethically speaking, doctors go down for worse. There are things that happen in this industry, in medicine. But anyway, as we move forward, I think politics, if you want to make change, you've got to get your voice heard. You've got to get into reason with the senator and his elected officials and your local community. That's the only way that you're going to make the wave or the tide change. Right. And you have to do it with common sense.
Yeah, the squeaky wheel gets the grease, and we've seen that in the State House. You know, if you have 15 lobbyists for a dispensary and nobody for the patients or the recreational market, guess what's going to get hurt?
Just what happened in Vermont.
Just what happened, exactly. And now, the state goes, we don't want these guys, but there's no one else here, so let's squash it, right?
And that's the
then you elect a person who is on a board to help run the state, and that in itself, what has happened here. Yeah. Is a dictatorship to an industry that is being guised by all of you. Right. Well, they have manipulated away from you their opportunities for you to have a grow shop and to truly grow and sell cannabis as you should be. A farmer can make ice cream and sell it up at his corner of his house, can he? Yeah. He can make wine and sell it on his property, can he?
Yeah.
Why can't I grow cannabis on my property and sell it? Because people like them wrote the laws to keep you out of it so they can control it away from you. And people like me voice that in the hearings and at legislative hearings and committees, and I will not stand down to defending the state or New England, for that matter, from people like that.
Right. Well, so, still, it's politics, power, and
they
money.
tried in New Hampshire. They're not there.
The state's leading guy for medical and cannabis and stuff was Shane Lynn. He's the dispensary owner. It's the state's.
Well, and it's insidious what you guys have allowed
for his industry to get legalized.
I've already provided enough information that you have to remove from his position. And soon enough, it will happen. If you guys were serious in law in the state, he should be removed.
2 weeks ago, we had over 200 plants confiscated off an illegal grow operation. No one's even talking about it today. But 2 weeks ago, a couple days after that, this kid's facing a felony for having 5 plants in his house. How is that right in the state? DPS needs to be investigated.
I agree. Opinion. Something's going on, and to allow them to continue with the big smile and to continue doing what they're doing is a guise. Citizens in New Hampshire have been railroaded, and they smile in your face and pee in the wind so that you can stand in their shower. And that is not a good place for my Vermonters and my friends and fams out here. This is not the way it should be done. No. They need to be fully held accountable and removed. There should be no reason for him to have those 2 titles. He should have his job, his business, and move on.
And he's in the rec market, too, now with other stores. So, but anyways, guys, we got to take a break. It's after the hour. Don't go anywhere. This is a great show. Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Rick. We're with Mike Salvaty from Good Stuff Grows, and Rick Naya, the great-grandfather of hybrid cannabis, Allele Genetics. Great friend. I love you guys.
No more moldy weed in Vermont.
Sadly, I heard it was just processed a few weeks ago. We're watching you, Central. We're watching you, Champaign
incredible
Valley.
what I've been hearing.
We are watching you. All right, guys, we're going to go take a break. You are tuned into WGDR Plainfield, WGDH Hardwick. This is Garrett College Community Radio, 91.1 FM and 91.7. This is In the Weeds with Joe Smith, Brendan Barberio. Guys, don't go anywhere. We'll be back with Jocelyn Dolan and Timothy Fair from Vermont Cannabis Solutions.
Catch that funky breeze in the weeds. You're in the weeds with your hosts Joe Smith and John Q. Public on WGDR 91.1 FM and WGDH 91.7. Catch that funky breeze.
Hi, this is Jessie Lynn Dolan, cannabis nurse researcher, educator, and consultant, an organic cannabis and hemp farmer. I founded the Vermont Cannabis Nurses Association and am bringing you a weekly dose of whole plant to whole person medicine and healing tips. I had the pleasure of speaking at this weekend's NECAN event, so for today's health tip, I chose to do a quick recap of some of the speaking points the cannabis nurses discussed. When I have just a few minutes to educate and discuss cannabis, the first thing I often go to as a nurse is safety. Of course, most people know never to consume before operating heavy machinery or driving a motor vehicle. I remind anyone with curious, unknowing children or elders and or unpredictable pets that safe cannabis storage and disposal is crucial. I encourage what some call harm reduction. This can be simple ways to help one reduce consumption if needed, consume more efficiently, or possibly introducing microdosing. I provide education on consuming in safer, healthier modes such as vaping or oral medications and edibles rather than combustion or smoking. If they are smoking, we caution second and third hand smoke. For anyone taking other supplements or pharmaceuticals, medication interactions can simply be checked and referenced on apps like Medscape or drugs.com. A simple tip or suggestion is recommending someone to take their CBD or hemp products several hours apart from other medications. Unlike most pharmaceuticals, dosing is always patient titrated and comes with a learning curve. Unfortunately, we don't know the most effective therapeutic dose for any particular medical condition, so there's no standardized dosing. The education and recommendation is to start low and go slow. When asked about product choices, I use an acronym called FLOW. F is for full spectrum products with all cannabinoids and original terpenes. So as far as hemp CBD products, that includes 0.3% or less of THC. This is considered optimal and therapeutic healing for what is called the entourage effect. L is for lab testing. We need to be insisting on and looking for third-party testing on all products. This testing needs to include more than just CBD and THC levels. Testing for heavy metals and contaminants, pesticides and mycotoxins, mold and mildews, just to name a few. We've seen several recent Vermont newspaper articles and information about the medical dispensaries struggling with mold and mildew, which can be very concerning for patients. Currently, our medical dispensaries only need to test for THC, so there's no quality control or testing for contaminants, molds, or pesticides. The Agency of Agriculture reported that all dispensaries have had mold concerns, and Champlain Valley Dispensary has explicitly asked for recommendations to combat this continuing problem. Vermont Agency of Agriculture is currently working on rules and regulations for hemp and over-the-counter CBD products, including third-party testing and testing for contaminants. We need to advocate for the medical dispensary programs to do the same. We also see the need for mandated testing with the national research gathered through the JAMA Medical Journal on over-the-counter CBD products, which shows us that less than 1/3 of the over-the-counter CBD products that were independently tested were labeled accurately. Third-party testing is absolutely necessary. The O in FLOW is for organic, the only way medicine should be. I am a proud clean green hemp farmer myself. Clean Green has a certification for both marijuana and hemp, and NOFA Vermont Organic Farms, has a certification for hemp. The W stands for whole plant medicine. To me, that means how we extract the cannabinoids from the plant and what parts of the plant we use. I prefer and advocate for organic ethanol extraction for whole plant synergistic healing. So I like to keep it as simple as we can get. Be safe, start low and go slow, and go for the flow when choosing products. Some cannabis nurse education highlights from NECAN this weekend for you. Tune in to In the Weeds Prohibition Talk Radio to hear your weekly dose of whole plant to whole person healing tips from Jessie Lynn and members of the Vermont Cannabis Nurses Association.
This PSA is brought to you in part by seized drug money.
Hey everybody, this is Elmo. Elmo is here to give a PSA about doing drugs. Because drugs are bad. You should never have drugs in your body, or on your person, or in your car, or anywhere. Because drugs are the root of all evil. Elmo thinks if, here, take this heroin, I'll take the teddy bear. Okay, yeah, that's better. No. If you have heroin, you can trade it. You can trade for a teddy bear like this one, or you can trade it for something like money. Wait, okay, maybe that would make you a drug dealer. And drug dealers are bad. Yeah, they're bad. Because drugs are the root of all evil.
All right, so that was an interesting PSA right there. So that's Elmo telling us that if you have heroin, you can trade it for money, right? Is that drug dealing? Is Elmo just inspiring kids?
I don't know, man.
That was a weird PSA.
That was quite odd.
That was odd.
All right, guys. So big shout out to Jesselyn Dolan for our weekly health tip. Right up next, guys, we have Timothy Fair on the line from Vermont Cannabis Solutions. Timothy, how you doing today?
Good. Good morning, Joe. How you doing?
We are a little tired.
I think we all are. Been a great weekend.
It was a great weekend, and that's one thing we wanted to discuss with you really quick. Because I mean, obviously you were there. We had so for the people that didn't know, Vermont Cannabis and Hemp Conference was this past weekend, put on by our great friends at Heady Vermont,
Mark and Mike and Heady
Vermont, right? So I mean, I was at the last NECAN in Boston. Awesome event, lots of vendors, lots of great things. I mean, and obviously in Vermont we are a little bit behind what's going on in Boston, right? So, but what was awesome today was this weekend was the support, right? We had over 120 vendors. We had lots of great speakers. Rick, you spoke as well.
There was a lot of vendors there that were interacting. Is what was really important. You know, in Vermont, I thought, you know, unlike Boston, you know, you got 30,000 people in a day. Here there were thousands, you know, maybe 5,000, 10,000 people came throughout the weekend. It isn't like you have a metropolis in Burlington. No. But what we did find was a community of people that were outspoken, knowledgeable, sharing that knowledge, and educating each other. And those that didn't were there to find it. And I really liked that. Yeah. It was very communal almost. It was like a community of the state that came together to share their insights. And there was great insight on good growing techniques, a lot of different hemp products and different varieties of hemp that were there. They even had insurance available for cannabis and hemp growers.
Insurance, banking, everything.
They had a lot of opportunity things going on.
So up to the show, though, it was interesting because, I mean, obviously we're advocates, so people love us, they talk to us, and our good friend Timothy here and Andrew put up a fun video right before the show. It kind of freaked everybody out. But Tim, I just wanted you to kind of go over.
We didn't try to freak everybody out.
I heard about that video.
Yeah. Well, with that being said, though, like you know, and like Rick said, what was great is people were listening, people were paying attention, people heard you guys, and people contacted everybody they thought they needed to contact to find out answers, right? So you must have had a busy weekend and explain to everybody. So just again, let's go over like the Vermont scene and doing events like this, because I feel like even though we had a great turnout, there was a lot of people that were still kind of scared to support or come out, or like, you know, we had the THC issue and the CBD issues. Like, let's just go over the weekend with me real quick from a legal standpoint.
Well, the first thing I think people need to realize, and I think that there was some, you know, miscommunication or misunderstanding of exactly what this was. This was a business exposition. This was a business-to-business convention for, just like what you're saying, the opportunity for people to come out to learn about cultivation techniques, to learn about professional services available, to learn about the industry. This wasn't simply a smoke out intended for people to all go and consume. There are great consumption events, which we've had a lot of fun at. This was not that. No. This was really, you know, an opportunity for the burgeoning industry to come out as businesses, to meet other businesses, to work together and see how they can help and support each other and support the industry as a whole. So I think that was a big component of it, and I think it was incredibly successful at that, you know, for what we intended it to be. You know, and I think people were respectful. I think people understood this was a brand new venue. I tell you, it was not easy convincing the Champlain Valley Fairgrounds to let this happen. They took a chance on us, and I think that paid off because I think the community really came out and did what they were supposed to do and didn't do what they weren't supposed to do.
Yeah, I want to share. In fact, even like myself, you know, a Canistar, I'm out walking around and looking at the security and talking with them, and they were impressed with the people. I mean, I understand that a lot of medical patients go, and some of them may need to, you know, partake to calm themselves or to alleviate their tensions or pains. But what they would do is they'd walk over and say, hi, it's all cool, but if you could go to your vehicle, that would be very well appreciated. They were so welcoming and so loving there at that facility, and they said, you know what, we do a lot of stuff here, and we see what happens when people drink and do whatever, and we love you guys. You guys are awesome. You're the nicest people. We've never met the friendliest people ever. And that's what was left with me from the
well, I
community.
mean, we were both at NECAN Boston, right? So, I mean, honestly, to me, this one felt better almost, even though it was smaller. Like it was almost a little more.
Joe can say that because it was in his home state.
Right.
He was a celebrity. People recognized him. They came to see him. It was actually very potent for the citizens of Vermont. This one, I felt it.
Well, I
do these yearly all
Vermont,
over the nation. I've been to every one, and this year was like, wow. They've come together as becoming a unit. They're finding that the independence that they had is now communal. They are a collective now that can work together to get where they need. And I really felt that.
Well, the hardest part in Vermont right now is that stigma. And Mike, you know all about it because, I mean, we walk anywhere in any stores around here. And Rick, you're here with me enough in Vermont now that, you know, we go on the wayside. And
we can't go anywhere.
We're heroes, but then we go into a gas station and we're getting looks because we smell like cannabis. Or we have a cannabis hat on, you know what I mean?
Oh, you should see
right?
They see the Good Stuff logo with the leaf. Oh my God, forget it. I think I'm straight up the spawn of the devil.
Yeah,
I go to some places. Yeah.
Sometimes, right?
But like, oh, there's that guy that sells bongs and dongs and grow nutrients.
Right. Viagra for your plants, right?
Right.
So, but like, you know, again, like, you know, so Tim, Hetty Vermont, you know, they work very hard in Vermont to create safe events. Well thought of events so people can come out to. And like I said, there was a lot of people this weekend that were really interested in coming. They were a little skeptical. They're like, are there seeds there? Like, what's the seed issue? And this is something that we talk about a lot, Tim, again, right? So just to touch base, we did sell THC seeds, we had CBD seeds, and like the seed issue is a weird commodity, right? Because this is something we all talk about. It's illegal, it's right, it's not.
Right.
The FDA says we can. The government's like we can ship them now.
There's stores everywhere. They're shipping it everywhere.
Right. But like, you know, and as far as this weekend goes, right? We talked about the community and the love that we all shared. Tim, were there any issues that you know of?
Zero.
None that I was aware of at all. This went smooth as can be.
We were the last people there, and again, literally the very last two people to leave were Joe and I, and the security left, and the last people we spoke to were security. And they said that they loved the people, the atmosphere, the way we.
Well, I mean, the venue can really
make
or break an event, right? So, like, so. Yes. For instance, we're in Woburn, right, for the Harvest Cup. There's. You know, you can go outside and smoke weed, right? We're downtown Woburn, 40 of us.
Worcester.
Worcester, right? On the sidewalk, and the cops are waving to us as we smoke, right? But then we go to NECAN Boston, it's all different, right? We can't smoke. There was cheerleaders and like all this weird things going on, right?
You know what was funny was that for the first time ever, I saw a parking sign on a wall that says "Tollway Zone." It said, please do not consume cannabis here. And it said cannabis on the sign. I was like, would you look at that? So we had to move down to a specific designated area, which they permitted. Quite something to be able to be in Boston, like in Portland and other cities, and feel liberty, to feel free. I get emotional over it because, you know, I've been fighting this since most of you weren't even
5
born.
years ago. Imagine if we did this.
And
you know?
now to be where we're at, and like hear your story. Hey, I just started this a few months back, and I worked my tail off, and I got this in 90 stores, and this is going to go viral national. That's where we're at. Yeah. Opportunities are abounding for those of us who, with respect for the industry, and affluence in business in itself, because it's really difficult for the socio-economically disadvantaged people to get a foothold into the industry, yet they were the ones that were targeted the most. So it's really kind of like, whoa, Vermont, New Hampshire, we don't have that kind of a problem. But you see it in Massachusetts and the larger cities.
The minority areas.
Yep, and you see that what's happening, like in Massachusetts, and hopefully because they did with their laws create a socioeconomic empowerment movement that for the cannabis industry, and now it's starting to get a hold. Even though they allowed the larger companies to take over, and the medical, what they're doing now is saying, I think we made a mistake, and we should really start helping these poor guys get in their way. Because the poor guys aren't buying. And the poor guys buy it from their street corner hustlers and dealers just for the same weed, if not better, cheaper, and they don't care. But what we're learning is that they wish they could have the opportunity to get skin in the game.
Well, the sad thing is that, and you nailed it right just now, and I want to touch on it. It's sad when these people that know the industry will only stay within the black market because
Mike keyed in on that.
It's like going to the doctors. It's like you don't trust your own dispensary enough to stay in the black market. So
when you hear about stories that they have mold in your cannabis,
this is what
patients it burns off in the process.
This is what we got Tim to talk about today. So like we have Tim on right now.
Pathogens that you inhale.
Right.
Yeah. It's
so their excuse is it burns it off. No, it doesn't. Right. So my problem is, and Mike, you know, because we're pretty vocal advocates here, the dispensary issue. Right. So now, a couple of weeks ago, we had the big push for S54. There was a dispensary clause in there. Me and Tim talk about this every week. We like to beat the horse over the head with this one because it seems like every week we talk about something big, huge that pops out. It disappears faster than our next show comes out, right? So we talked about this last week, right? But really, though, like, listen, what was it, 2 weeks ago that this happened with Peach Greens?
Right.
Where did the story go, right? Now I'm reading papers about this guy down south that's going to get nailed for 5 plants. And I got to talk to Tim about it, and Tim's going, dude, he's in more trouble than Central Vermont. So, Tim, what is going on right now in our current system with the S54? I know the bill got squashed. What's our next deal? What do we got to do now?
Continue to petition.
Get rid of Shane Lynn is what needs to be done.
The reality is that S54 is dead for this year, barring some absolute miracle. The House leadership, specifically our Speaker of the House, just did not make this a priority. Interestingly enough, in the week up to the point, the do or die point, our legislators were supposed to be accessible to the public.
Yep.
It's interesting to note that the Speaker of the House's office phone went directly to voicemail, which was false. She couldn't even bother to empty her voicemail to allow constituents to leave an opinion. Basically, you called them were immediately hung up on. So that goes to show you how the current House leadership really thinks about our constituents. So S54, we're done. So now what they're saying is they're looking at getting this done quickly in January. Interestingly enough, it's going to be the exact same people. So second half of biennium, so you'll have the same legislators, the same House leadership, the same governor. And so I don't know how people expect the conversation to really change.
They need to remove Shane Lynn from the equation. You can't have somebody in 2 places at once and then control his industry and the destiny of the future of the citizens. That's impossible. Well, now, somebody's got to hold somebody accountable somewhere along the line here.
Well, there's a few more issues, I think, with the governor. We'll talk about the governor right now, because his big thing is the roadside thing. I don't think it's such a dispensary issue to the governor to pass this bill, but it's like this roadside saliva test.
Well, Joe, it ties together. It all ties together. So when we talk about oversight and why CBD was allowed to do this and why nobody has said anything, because there is nobody to say anything. This is a medical program that's overseen by the Department of Public Safety, who does not like it, who does not want it. Why they didn't respond harsher to this, I can't answer that question. To me, it seems like a no-brainer. I see dispensaries in Massachusetts getting shut down because of a slight mistake in their disposal process. They didn't grind
before
up
the end of the day.
We're seeing dispensary owners in Colorado were sent to jail for a year for looping, which is selling more than the quantities.
Right.
Now, a 220 plant illegally grown on another Vermont business with
claiming it was hemp,
telling them what
knowing
it was
cannabis,
deceiving them.
Yeah,
this is ridiculous.
He should have been arrested. They should have closed his business down.
Any other state?
Yeah. Well, we got a kid facing a felony
in
for
the
5
United
plants.
States. They would be locked up. The dispensary.
This is why we need a cannabis control board. This is why we need an
That's why in
independent
New Hampshire we've been watching every state in the nation
provide oversight.
I agree with you, and I've been watching every state in the nation. And what we did in New Hampshire, I hate saying this, that we're the island of prohibition and an ocean and a tsunami of legalization. But what we were able to do is watch everybody that was really progressive moving forward, and like the screw-ups of everybody grow as much as they want out west. That ruined them.
Well, even Mass is showing us a lot of things right now that we should pay attention to. With the big corporations coming and buying everything up, with the social equity programs that they kind of squashed. They took a bunch of people's money said we weren't going to do it, and now they're doing it.
Well, that was the one thing I liked about with New York, because I follow New York too, because I'm a New Yorker.
Me too.
So the one thing I liked about New York is minority leaders actually stepped and said, whoa, you got to give us a piece of it if you want to move this forward. And there's enough
New
of them.
Jersey, too.
And New Jersey.
Right.
So, and I think that's really important. And, you know, a lot
Cuomo, though.
Well, here's what we have to consider. Demographics.
Right.
In Vermont, New Hampshire, we don't have that form of demographics where even if there was, if somebody came from New York and opened up an organization and they hired a lobby buddy and said, hey, get down there and pipe that wind up their gazoo and make sure that they don't do anything unless we are involved. Well, how many would be really in line to do it?
Right.
And that's the difficulty that we face with the population demographics. Now, Massachusetts is a great example that New Hampshire needs to learn from because our demographics is a little bit different. We got a pretty melting pot. Things are starting to change in New Hampshire and the antiquated old people because remember our House of Legislature.
Well, you're a red state. You're a heavy red state.
It's very difficult. It's a very difficult place to be. But again, New Hampshire has learned from the mistakes of other states. And with our House Bill 481, what we did, unlike any other state in the nation, is we required that if you were going to be anything that had to do with growing cannabis recreationally, you had to be a citizen of the state of New Hampshire for over 3 years.
Yep.
And it had to be done on a farm agriculturally.
That's what we should do.
And we included a 25% minimum renewable energy, not to crash our electrical grid.
Systems. Yeah, people don't realize the stress on water and electricity that
bingo,
cultivation
boingo.
does.
It's quite
waste.
And
where does it go? Right?
Where does it go?
There's a lot of waste as well, and then recycling waste is where it's really all about. I mean, that's what organically we'll do.
Well, that's it. It's not even water runoff and waste as we think of it. It's actual plant waste. It's the byproducts. It's the leftovers.
It's the problem they're having.
Well, what happens with most people that grow, they take it to the buddy, the process, it gets sold, and they make the oil, and someone else makes the cookies and put it in the cartridge and it's sold. Vertically integrated companies can do a lot more.
Yeah, seed to
and what's
shelf,
really important, well, seed to shelf or seed to sale is what we call it, you know? That's what I'm trying to be able to do in New Hampshire. I want a farmer to be able to say, hey, I grew my cannabis. I processed the oil, and, well, I might not make all the cookies, but I make my own special batch here. But the rest of the oil I sell to my neighbor, who's the manufacturer, who makes all the vape cartridges and all the cookies and all the solves and all that, and then he sells it to the dispensaries that buy it from him. And another thing that we did is we watched the way things were being taxed and over-regulated, and we stood up really, really loud, myself and a close friend of mine, to change the way that they were going to tax in New Hampshire. It was going to be one of the highest in the nation. Now we are the lowest at a 5% total on the farmer's end and a 9% sales tax as we have for our food and beverage tax. So that didn't change. It's like a sin tax. You pay it for your cigarettes, you pay it in gas.
Your basic agricultural tax.
That's what I think cannabis they should regulate it like
tobacco,
and wine and beer. It should be regulated like that.
It's a health and wellness product.
Yeah.
How are we going to look at it? It's a drug. No, it's not a drug. People keep thinking, it's a drug, and you're going to...
It's a plant that you can eat.
Listen,
right?
No one in the world has ever died from consuming cannabis.
No.
And that's what's important.
We only got about 3 minutes left. I want to change gears real quick because I got a big thing to ask Tim. Last week, Oregon opened up trades, right? International trades,
import
shipping,
and export.
right? So now, me and Brandon's on the line here. We kind of had a little argument back and forth last week, which I didn't have time to finish with you, so we're going to start it again. What I read was that, they're going to start this once it goes legal. What Brandon reads is it's going right now. Tim, can you clarify what the heck is going on Oregon with international shipping?
This is something Oregon's been exploring now for a few months. They've been talking about it in terms of trying to solve their oversupply problem.
Right.
Which is, of course, a serious issue.
Serious.
Prices just absolutely plummeting out there.
6 years?
I don't.
Well, actually,
believe,
they went up. They plummeted, Tim. They did. They plummeted down to $100 to $200 a pound. But they just
the market just spiked. Their prices are flying.
Up there.
Their
prices
went up 4 times. Yeah.
Yeah, they're like $800 to $1,000 a pound out there now. It's like, whoa, what happened? Maybe the stimulation of this bill that they're trying to move forward, or if you can fill us in.
What does this do for us, Tim?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, what is it? Again, still, and again, I have been kind of wrapped up the last 3 days. Something happened recently. I'm a little out of it in the last 72 hours. But as far as my understanding is there still won't be any international shipment, at least while the federal government is still, maintaining its absurd prohibition, because ultimately Customs and Border Patrol is a federal agency. Any products being shipped in or out are subject to DEA inspection. DEA, of course, is still taking the position this is a Schedule I controlled substance. And I think people are speculating that this might be able to open up. I think that people are hoping that we see some change. People are looking up north to Canada. That is successfully imported.
What are your thoughts on the Banking Act and SAFER Act this year?
Those, by far, the Safe Banking Act is the piece of federal legislation that is getting the most momentum. Currently, it is being held up at the Senate level by right? But for the first time, you're seeing this huge bipartisan push back, saying, whether you support legalization or don't support legalization, the reality is that it's happening. The reality is that we cannot maintain this as a cash-only industry.
Right. 31 states is medically legal. You got 11 of them legal.
Can't get a bank, right?
Can't get a bank.
All right, guys. Well, anyways, I got to cut it off. I hate to do it. We got 20 seconds left.
Mike,
thank you. Where can people find you, Mike?
Hey, they can find us at growgreatweed.com or goodstuffgrow.com, and check us out on Instagram at goodstuffgrow.
All right, guys, thanks again. Rick Naya, the great-grandfather of hybrid cannabis. We even had a Jay Willis sighting in the studio. Thank you, Tim. Guys, we'll be back next week. Big announcement. Next week's our last week in this time slot. If you don't like it, contact WGDR.org.
Talk to you soon, Joe. Bye.
Thanks,
Thank you, guys.
Later.